Alrighty, shall we get into it? Greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to our Saturday afternoon live stream for August 16 of the 2025 fantasy football season. Over the course of the next 2 hours, we're talking anything and everything fantasy football related. Now, of course, for many of us who were potentially watching or consuming football prior to this live stream, you were of course watching a couple of the preseason games that are taking place. Obviously there's younger players that are making strides towards greatness. I'm sure there's a lot of ADPs adjusting just in the last hour or so within the overall fantasy realm. But I hope you guys are doing well over the course of the next 2 hours. Again, I'm answering any and all fantasy football related questions, so you can go ahead and type that in the live chat. When you do type a question in the live chat, please do me a favor. In order to make it a more, a smoother process, include your scoring format, the amount of teams in your league, all the context that would be required for it to make it just a cleaner process of answering said questions. That would be greatly appreciated. Now, of course, besides answering questions, we will be mock drafting over the course of today's live stream via Sleeper. So if you guys want to go ahead and get in on that, I will be, of course, posting that link into the description of or not description, but in the live chat as we progress here. But outside of that, we're looking good. Somebody mentioned that the parlay, or more like the picks and the play that we entered yesterday, is doing well on Betr. We're hoping that Teddy Bridgewater can go ahead and close that out for us. I see a lot of happy birthdays. I greatly appreciate that the meme continues to live on. A big 67 is crazy, guys. Are absolutely wild business there. But I hope you guys are doing well. Let's see here. John H. in the chat says, do you think Henderson is worth a third round selection over Walker and a half PPR? Absolutely not. Look, Travion Henderson is going to be a fantastic fantasy prospect for many of us this season, especially in a full PPR because of his receiving upside. Obviously, he's a rookie, but he's a second round selection out of Ohio State. We have seen over the last 5 seasons, even up to the last decade of fantasy football, when we have seen rookie running backs selected in the second round and join a team without a pre-existing top 20 fantasy back the year before, they usually get the vast majority of touches. Now, it's going to take a little while for him to overtake and completely clear the overall opportunity share that Ramondre Stevenson will most likely post early in the season. But once he does clear that, I mean, it could happen in the next coming weeks. Time will tell, but I'm not drafting him in the third because I can get him in the 5th or 6th, right? That's what I'm waiting for. I want to get him at the best value. I'm not trying to overdraft him where in the 3rd round I should be getting a Chase Brown falling to me, or a James Cook, or even in the late 3rd, early 4th, an Alvin Kamara, which in my opinion are far better values at that position. I see Isaac sent in a super chat. That's greatly appreciated. Again, if you guys want to prioritize your questions, you can support in that regard. That's greatly appreciated, Isaac. He says in a 12-man half PPR league, it's a full PPR, 12-man full PPR redraft, 1 flex format. My draft consisted of Hurts and Dak Prescott, Hubbard, Henderson, Aaron Jones, Tracy, Dobbins, CD, BTJ, London, Ayuk, Cup, Hunter Henry. What do you think? Strangers on the waivers. Okay, so this is my thought process on the matter. Whenever you draft a top 5 quarterback in fantasy football, so if you draft Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, Jaden Daniels, and Joe Burrow, regardless of what format you guys play, and just understand that if you're going to draft one of the big 5 and they don't have an early bye week, it is probably in your best interest to avoid drafting that second quarterback. So if I look at the Eagles' upcoming schedule here, let's see here. The Eagles' 2025 schedule consists of a Week 9 bye. I think having Dak Prescott on roster does you a disservice, to be honest. I think that is just going to absorb a roster spot that it doesn't need to, because you're never going to shy away from starting Jalen Hurts. So I think just filling that roster spot, unless you're going to utilize Dak as trade fodder going forward, don't really need that on roster. As for the team as a whole, I mean, CeeDee Lamb, BTJ, London, I mean, that is your 2 wide receivers in your flex, set, ready to go. Hubbard plus Henderson or Aaron Jones or Tracy. I mean, you're pretty much just going to play matchup at running back until one of these kind of lower tier outside of Hubbard, Henderson, Aaron Jones, Tracy, until one of them ascend. You're going to wait until that happens. But as of right now, you are very much so wide receiver heavy, and it's proper because it is a full PPR format. The only thing that scares me is Hunter Henry. I would love to pick up Strange off the waivers. I mean, I would be dropping Dak in order to accomplish that. Or if you can and you have an IR spot available, I'm taking Ayuk. I'm jumping him into your injured reserve position and then subsequently picking up Strange for free. So if you can do that, Isaac, that would be in your best interest. Thank you very much for the question. CS Derek says, happy late birthday. You know, every other day it's my birthday, but I appreciate it. Thank you, CS Derek. All right, let's see here. Yeah, more mocks. Yeah, we're going to do that right now in just a moment. How concerned are we about Justin Jefferson, Andrew? Still top 5 pick? I wouldn't categorize him as a top 5 pick. No, I mean, I guess it depends on the format that you play in. Like if I go look at my rankings right now, even in a full PPR, let me see here. Where's my rankings? Let's see. In a full PPR format, as it currently stands, I have Justin Jefferson as my 6. Like I don't even have him in my top 5. So am I concerned about him? No. I still think he is going to be, you know, a top 3 to 5 wide receiver this season, even with the services of JJ McCarthy and even with him coming off of this hamstring strain that he's been dealing with. But again, he has already been progressing in training camp, kind of warming up and ramping up to get back to full capacity. So I'm not worried about Justin Jefferson ultimately. It's just in comparison to the alternative available options early in our drafts, I would rather go with the alternatives. Let's see here. Henderson probably going to go in the 6th or 7th round. Yeah, that's where we want him. Absolutely. We do not want to reach. We want to take players. Look, players that have, okay, let's just, I'm sure we're all aware of this concept, right? But we want to be selecting players that we believe are going to outproduce their ADP at said ADP. So even if we believe that Henderson is going to be let's say, for example, we had a guarantee that he was going to finish as a top 15 back. I don't want to draft him as a top 15 back. I still want to draft him where he is currently going, which sits around like RB 23 to 25, depending on format. So I want to take him the 2-round discount later. I want to get that discount of 2 rounds later on in my draft rather than overdrafting him early on. So I'm sure many of us are aware of that. But again, just a reminder. Now, speaking of reminders, quick little reminder. Again, via Betr. Again, if you guys want my rankings over the course of this season, we're making plays every single live stream. And of course, over the course of the season, integrating plays within the content in terms of daily uploads. Yesterday, let me go ahead and let me share that with you guys. I also have another play for the futures plays that they did release on Betr earlier today. Let me just go ahead and share that really quickly. So yesterday, we talked about the following plays here. We shared it on the live stream. I even went ahead and I shared this within a video, taking Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones, both going more on their passing yards. I also have Teddy Bridgewater within this play. So Teddy Bridgewater plays at 4 p.m. PST in a couple hours. He should be able to complete that overall trifecta, and we should be off to a great start to the Betr season here. As for the other play that I went ahead and I put in earlier today. So on Betr, if I go ahead and go back here, so they've already added like, I mean, and they're consistently adding this as we go. These are like season totals going into this upcoming season. So you can go ahead, pick more or less on a specific player statistics if you think they're going to outproduce it. The couple that I really did find that, I mean, Christian McCaffrey at 930.5 rushing yards, I find to be comical. Legitimately, I find that to be comical. Unless Christian McCaffrey is legitimately going to get hurt and miss a significant volume of time, that number should be surpassed with relative ease because of the talent that he is and the opportunity share that he is going to be exposed to within this backfield. Now, prior to getting on the stream, I didn't see some of these other stats. I'm actually curious. Like Calvin Ridley in 900 yards seems, I mean, why are they so low on some of these numbers? Interesting. Passing touchdowns by receiving touchdowns. I mean, some of these numbers are nice, but again, as of right now, looking at this number, and I'm thinking this is one of my favorites. But again, if you guys look at something, find something that you think, Andrew, it's a absolute lock, you let me know, and we can go ahead and put that together. But again, if you guys are trying to get in on some of the plays that we're making over here on Betr, use code Andrew. There's a link down in the description. When you sign up using code Andrew, make that first time deposit minimum of $10, and then make a first time play of minimum $1 on any of those kind of plays, whether it's the NFL futures, whether it's the preseason, any of that short. As long as you make a $1 play within the picks vertical of the Betr app, at that point, your email will be updated on my list, and then I can send you weekly updated rankings over the course of this month for draft rankings, half PPR, full PPR, and then subsequent Sunday morning rankings for weekly rankings over the course of the entire season. So if you guys are interested in that, link down in the description. Thank you very much for all the support. And of course, if you're wondering if you're eligible, the eligibility is based on where you're located in the state or in the United States based on your current state. And of course, if you play up to 10, you'll get up to $30 instantly via Betr. Thank you. All right, we had a question from Pluto4. Pluto, thank you very much. This is in a full PPR 12-team league. We have Josh Allen, Waddle, DK, Chase Brown, Gibbs. Oh my gosh. You've begun to build a monster squad here. What's that? We have Travis Hunter, where my bench consists of Charbonnet, who looked good today, Cup, Chubb, Algier, and Keenan Allen. Okay, look, just looking at the draft as a whole, Gibbs in the first round, then you follow with most likely either, I'm assuming you went like Josh Allen in the second, maybe you went Chase Brown in the second, Josh Allen in the third, either which way, I'm perfectly fine with that. Going DK in the fourth to establish your number one wide receiver, I'm fine with. In a full PPR, considering both of your running backs are heavily receiving kind of incorporated, you're fine not going wide receiver because at least you have the vertical upside that they're going to present within those categories. Getting a possession receiver that Travis Hunter is going to be as their primary slot receiving option. Hopefully Waddle steps up this season. I mean, I like the squad as a whole. I don't see a tight end. I'm going to assume that your league does not play with any tight ends, in which in that case, you're fine. I just would have expected more receiver depth on the bench. I don't really love the idea of Keenan Allen or Kupp on the bench as of this current moment. But hopefully, we can kind of, as the season progresses, hit the waiver wire, make trades and stuff like that and see how it progresses. Otherwise, maybe they outproduce what my current expectation and projections are based on my model. If they are able to outproduce that, then so be it. That'd be fantastic. Otherwise, I think it's a really strong kind of base to your roster with Gibbs, Brown, Metcalf, Allen, Hunter. I think it's a pretty strong base, to say the very least. Ryan Kramer sends in a question. Ryan, thank you very much. I greatly appreciate it. It says, in a 12-team full PPR Superflex keeper league, who should be my keeper, and how would you draft at the number 6 spot? I have Laporta in the 13th. I have Chase Brown in the 7th. I have BTJ in the 10th. Thanks, man. In a full PPR Superflex format, if I was in your position, I'm keeping Brian Thomas Jr. in the 10th round. That's an automatic in my mind. And then I'm following the number 6 overall pick by trying to pick one of the top 5 one of the top 5 quarterbacks. If Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Jaden Daniels, Lamar Jackson, or Joe Burrow were to fall to you at the 1.06 of your first round, that's the direction that I go with. If those 5 are already kept and or selected prior to your selection, then I'm going best available player, either a running back or a wide receiver. Considering it's a full PPR, you can go in either direction. Then you can address your quarterback pick within the second round and approach accordingly. Thank you, Ryan. Bye, Los Angeles. How's it going? Good afternoon. Kyler in the chat says, should I feel confident in my 10-team league? We have Mahomes, we have Genty, we have Bucky, we have Kenneth Walker, Jamar. Brother, I mean, yes, you should. Ridley, you have Waddle, you have DJ Moore. I mean, looking at it across the board, right? You have Jamar Chase, which is, again, on many people's board, either the 1.01 or the 1.02. You have one of the top 2 players in fantasy going into this year. Then you follow it with 2 top 8 running backs, maybe 2 top 9, depending on who you ask, with Genty and Bucky. You have another running back within the top 20, which is Kenneth Walker, who has the eligibility and the potential to be a top 12 running back if he's able to maintain his health for the entirety of the season. Then you have Ridley and DJ Moore, who I believe are both top 24 prospects this year, and Waddle, who's another top 30, top 36, depending on his health and the association of Tua Tagovailoa. I think it's a pretty strong start. Do I love the selection of Mahomes? If Mahomes plays better than he has in the last couple seasons, and it's not difficult for him to do so because we know that he's incredibly talented. If he's able to perform just a slight bit better, going from his natural average as of late to being like a 17.5 point guy per game, if he jumps to the 18, maybe 19 point per game conversation, you're in a really good spot, to say the least. Kaiser in the chat says, who do you think has the higher ceiling? Ricky Pearsall, Diggs, or Egbuka? I think the highest ceiling of the bunch. Wow, that's actually a really good question. I think technically Diggs has the highest potential for ceiling. And the reason why I say that is because his target competition is far less than the alternatives, right? Egbuka has to deal with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, and in the backfield, Cade Otton. There are many threats that are already established within the offense. Ricky Pearsall has to deal with Jawan Jennings, Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, and a returning Ayuk, right? There's a lot of weapons there. Diggs is joining an offense that had no weapons across the board. The best receiver outside of him is Demario Douglas. And I think there's a kind of implied narrative that, again, if he's able to stay healthy coming off of his injury, he should have the highest ceiling because he should see the most targets potentially if that health is there. Under the assumption that, again, he has a slow start or the the ACL that he, of course, sustained last year, something that is going to slow him down, then I would lean in the direction of Ricky Pearsall, as that, in my opinion, is the safest of the three. All right, we had a question that came in from Kennifer. Thank you very much, Ken. It says, how does your draft strategy change in an 8-man full PPR league? Quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 2 flex. Drafting from the number 7 spot. I don't know if I should go with a quarterback or a tight end. Every team stacked. Okay, yeah, look, that's the thing. When you play in an 8-man league, every team is going to just be stacked. And really, you are just building all-star rosters. I have no problem at all in my mind building an all-star roster in which you are grabbing an early tight end or quarterback. I don't think it's necessary because, again, with only 8 teams in the league, you can have many of quarterbacks at your disposal weekly and just play matchups. You could legitimately play, anybody who's playing the Carolina Panthers this week, I'm going to start them at quarterback. And then if they're not available, I'll play whoever's playing against whatever the next worst team is in the National Football League as the season transpires here. But if you wanted to take a early quarterback or tight end, perhaps in the 3rd, 4th, 5th rounds, I don't have an issue with it. I think they're proper selections, but again, with less teams in the league, it does give you more cushion to wait on those positions because inherently there are going to be better players. No one's going to be double drafting quarterbacks to where you'll still have the 8th best quarterback on roster potentially if you wait until round 10. JK says, thanks for what you do, man. Thank you, JK. I appreciate that. Much love. Daniel B says, did a draft early today, 14-man. I got McCaffrey, Bucky, and Kamara, 1, 2, and 3. Look, going triple RB start, I think is sketchy, but considering the talent you were able to, build for a 14-team league, I think that's crazy. I think that is ridiculous value considering the 14-team situation, to say the very least there. Let's see here. Productions in the chat was saying, first overall pick in a 6-man league. As a Birds fan, it would kill me not to pick Saquon. What do you think? Yeah, I mean, look, it's just purely a matter of what makes you happy on Sundays, right? I mean, look, we are playing fantasy football. Many of us play with the competitive spirit, but ultimately, if it is going to kill you every Sunday to watch Saquon score for someone else's team, it's probably in your best interest to select Saquon just to have a fun September through January experience. If you're looking to try to strategically play it the best, I'm going Bijan there. Jackson Neely in the chat says, thoughts on starting Christian McCaffrey, starting with Christian McCaffrey, Bowers, JSN. I don't have an issue with it as long as it's a PPR format. If we're talking about full PPR, I'm perfectly fine with it. In a half PPR, getting Bowers in the 2nd round, I think just depends. As of right now, in my full PPR rankings, I have Bowers as my number 19 overall player in a flex position. So number 19 would suggest that you're able to get him and McCaffrey on that 1-2 turn. In a half PPR format, considering, again, the lesser value of receptions as a whole, he jumps down to being my number 22 overall player, which, again, that would be a late 2nd round, maybe early 3rd round selection, in my opinion. So it just depends on format. In a full PPR, I have no issue with that 1-2-3 start because JSN is incredibly valuable in a full PPR, especially considering right now I have him as my 14th wide receiver in round 3. That's perfect in my mind. Alrighty, let's see here. Dante in the chat was saying, are you worried about any player injuries this season? I mean, there's still a lot that we're worried about and we're still continuing to monitor. I think the first and foremost thought is Matthew Stafford. Is he healthy? Because, again, he is responsible for elevating the value of players such as Kyron Williams, Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams, etc. I'm also worried about Joe Mixon, what his injury is going to consist of and whether that's going to return at a healthy pace and whether there's going to be any chance of re-aggravation. I'm also still a little bit concerned about what A.J. Brown, Justin Jefferson, those top-tier wide receivers are currently dealing with and whether they're going to be ready to go come week 1 of the season. We're keeping everything monitored, but again, there's still a lot of time between now and the first games of the season. Again, I know many of you are potentially drafting early because this works for your schedule, but we have 3 weeks, a total of just about 22 days until the first Sunday of the season. So there's still a lot of time for a lot of these players to make progress, get healthy, and hopefully be available for us early in week 1. But again, even if they're not available in week 1, many of you who had T. Higgins last year and drafted T. Higgins, this time last year, he was dealing with a hamstring strain. And he did not play in weeks 1 and 2, but again, he still ended up coming back, still playing well, and for myself, won me a lot of championships across the board with those late season antics that he put forth. So it doesn't matter really how you start. It's really just going to be a matter of how your team develops. And once you hit that stride in weeks 4 and beyond, truly, like, there's a league that I want, like even my home league, my home main league, where I have a bunch of killers playing against me. I started 0-3 and I won the championship, because again, it really doesn't matter how you start, because you could get hit with an injury bug early. It's a matter of, did you build your team properly? Have you assessed your team in a way in which you are actively hitting the waiver wire? Are you active enough in terms of playing the matchups at kicker and defense? Are you continuing to develop in terms of trades and looking forward toward value of players? So it's not just your draft in itself, it's also the forward movement as we persist here. Okay. Now, really quickly, what I wanted to do is I want to go ahead and draft alongside you guys, because again, I know there's a lot of questions, but I'll answer these questions as we go. We're going to start off with a 12-team full PPR league. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drop that link in the chat here. I'm going to probably draft I've drafted late in the last couple days, so let me go ahead. I'm just going to take the 1.01, do myself a little favor here, just so that I have more time to talk, because I'll have back-to-back selections, and then it'll go down the board and come back, and then I'll have back-to-back so where I can talk about it. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drop that link in the chat for those of you who want to join me via Sleeper. We're going to head on over there right now. I'm going to toss the ball onto the screen as we progress, and then we will set that up. So for those of you who join in, let me go ahead and let me change the scoring format accordingly. Again, this is a 12-team. We're going to change it to full PPR, 60 seconds to select a pick, mainly because Andrew needs to talk. And if you guys could make it quick selections, that'd be great. Just want to give you guys an understanding as to how this draft is going to proceed. We will go with a triple wide receiver, 2 running backs, 1 flex, 1 tight end, 1 quarterback, 5 bench approach. It's not too many roster spots. Again, it's only 13, so we can go with a quick draft and then jump into the next draft and ready to go, okay? So as this fills up, and it did, we will go ahead and we will start this draft. I will go ahead and I will make the 1.01. It doesn't really make a difference. I will make a happy selection of Bijan, and I'll build the roster as such. We'll see where we go. All right. CS Derek sent in a super chat. CS, I'm pretty sure. Let's see here. If I can find your question, that'd be great. I don't know if you potentially typed in something earlier. I do see that. It says, I just started up a dynasty and I'm discussing trades, but I'm not sure if I should. Okay. If I have the value right. I shipped Montgomery for a 2026 second rounder and currently trying to send a 2027 second and Mason Taylor for Keon Coleman. Okay, so this is what I will say. There are many of draft like pick/dynasty calculators out and about within the industry, which I would say that probably those are far more equipped with the correct analysis of what the value of those selections are. Considering I don't have context to the rest of your team, I don't know if you're in a rebuild, considering you're trading away Montgomery for a second rounder, that leads me to believe you're rebuilding. I would consider the fact that you're trading a 27 second for Keon Coleman. I understand the idea regarding that, but are you overpaying? I don't know if it's, I don't think it's it depends on if you're in a win now situation. If you're trying to win now, I'm not trading away Montgomery, I don't mind the trade for Keon Coleman. That I don't have an issue with, because again, that's backlogged down the line in 2027, and you're trying to win now, then you're obviously trying to bring in talent. But if you're in a position to where you're trying to win now, I don't know if the move of Montgomery is something that I'm looking to build upon, or if I'm looking to try to execute that. Dante in the chat was saying, any predictions on how long Rashee Rice's suspension will be? My assumption is it's going to be 6 games. So after the first 4 weeks of the season, maybe he plays 5, but maybe he goes on the commissioner's exempt list. Let's say he doesn't play. Let's say he plays the first 5 weeks of the season. If he misses 6 games, he'll be back by week 12, because they technically do have a week 10 or 11 bye week somewhere there. So I think it's going to be a 6-game suspension. I haven't seen any precedent in the recent future or recent history in which it would suggest a longer suspension than that. So we'll have to wait and see. We had Michael Martinez send in a super chat. Michael, thank you very much. I greatly appreciate it. It says in a 12-team half PPR league with the defensive line, DB, and linebacker positions, I'm able to use Travis Hunter as a DB. Then would you take him for position advantage in the 3rd/4th round? Average DB gets 1 to 3 points per game. Wow. Okay. Interesting. Would I be okay? Would I try to take him early to grant myself a positional advantage? This is something that I have not. Okay, I don't play in any IDP, which is, for those of you who are not familiar, IDP is individual defensive player. I don't play in any leagues like that. So am I taking the advantage of getting a wide receiver that can score me 12 points and then I can plug him into that position? And I would say, sure, in the 4th round, I'm okay with that. Just off of right now thinking about it, I'm okay with it. Am I in absolute love with the idea? Not generally, but if he's going to be putting up, let's say, 11 to 12 points, because he'll get a couple DB points and maybe he gets 10 points per game, 12 points per 10 to 11 points per game as a wide receiver, I think there's enough of a discrepancy of value to where it is potentially worth the approach. Alrighty, let's see here. Bryant, let's see what you had to say. It said in the 12-man PPR, I'm keeping BTJ for MU 6th round. Okay. With that said, running back, or wide receiver running back at the turn. At the 12th man, 6th round pick, you're keeping BTJ. Oh, am I on the clock? Okay, 1 second. Let me go ahead. Let's see what we have available here. Honestly, I want wide receiver because I addressed running back relatively early. And the running backs that are available are not at the most valuable proposition point. I kind of feel like I want to punt on tight end as well. I don't know if I need to grab. Let's see. What do we have available here? Yeah, nothing too incredible. Did McConkey end up going? He went really early. My goodness. Okay, so of the available, I will take myself. I mean, I'm just going to go straight off value. Just give me the 2 best available on my board. I'm just going to hope that they're healthy and ready to go. All right. Where are we at here? Yeah, so as for your question, on the turn, with BTJ already kind of kept, I'm not really thinking like, oh, I have a wide receiver, therefore I can ignore the wide receiver position. If I was in your position in a PPR, I'm going wide receiver RB on the turn. Scott G says in a 12-team full PPR, 1 round, 10th pick, first round, 10th pick, Genty or HN. In a full PPR, I'm going HN. The receiving upside is far too sweet for us to pass up on, especially if you look at his stats with Tua under center. He was the best receiving back in the NFL last season. Fried Cheese Curd says, Andrew, you answered my donut yesterday, but what makes Gibbs better than Saquon in a full PPR? Receiving upside. It's purely a matter of receptions. And when you look at the potential of this offense, most likely taking a couple steps back, putting themselves into maybe negative and or kind of neutral game scripts rather than positive ones, which force them to run the ball and then run the clock out, and being in less situations in which they're blowing out their opponents, I think, and then of course like pulling their team in the 4th quarter, I think it does present a little bit more value there with the receiving upside that is presented in comparison to, unfortunately, the fact that the brotherly shove tush push is still active. Wow, we have 3 quarterbacks flying off the board very quickly. So yeah, as of right now, it's purely in a PPR, the receiving upside. Josh says in a PPR, pick 2, HN, CMC, Neighbors, and Nico. If it's my team in a full PPR, I'm going Christian McCaffrey and I'm going Neighbors. That's the way that I go about it, Josh. Donald, what's up, man? How's it going? Hope you're doing well. Lee Flores says, thoughts on Tyler Warren in a half PPR? The quarterback play is atrocious for the Indianapolis Colts. I literally, because of this, really quickly, let me go here. Let's see. Because of this entry I made earlier today in regards to Betr, I had to watch the first half of that football game just to make sure that Richardson and Daniel Jones did their jobs. And trust me, they did their jobs. It was fantastic. But in regards to the potential of Tyler Warren, he is going to most likely have Daniel Jones as his quarterback. Most likely. And it is not going to be pretty, but fingers crossed that he'll get enough of a target opportunity share to where he's going to, still be in that relevancy point. But again, the quarterback play is ugly, to say the least. Breece Hall going in the 3rd. Man, Henderson, man, look, this is what I'm saying. Okay, this is what's going to happen. As the weeks progress, Players are going to score in preseason and people are going to get hyped. And that just, it is what it is. It's going to happen all the time. I understand it. It makes sense. Jefferson or Lamb, does Hammy worry you? Hammy always is going to worry me, right? Because there's always the potential of re-aggravation and him missing time, being placed on the IR, etc. So, of course, it worries me. If it is something that is going to make the difference in your mind to where that concern, that potential of re-aggravation is something you want to avoid, then go with Lamb. But otherwise, I do have Jefferson still one spot ahead of Lamb, but they're both in the same tier, so I don't mind picking one over the other based on my projections. In terms of total points scored by the end of the season, weeks 1 through 17, I have them within a 3-point separation. I did see, the most recent selection here was Terry McLaurin. I did see Terry McLaurin was taken off of the PUP, which is the physically unable to perform. They're going to ramp him up. It seems like he's ready to potentially start practicing here soon, hopefully with a new contract, but we'll have to wait and see. Okay, let's see here. Charlene says Ollie Gordon is a power RB and a Mostert. Yeah, I mean, he could be. He very well could be. Jake SF says Dynasty. Is this a good trade? Mahomes and a 2026 third for a 2026 for two 2026 firsts and a 2026 second. I think it's just purely a matter of what your quarterback's situation looks like. Like, obviously, if you have Mahomes, for fantasy purposes, you're going to be able to have him for the next decade of the Dynasty League, and you're going to start him every single game going forward. Does he have as much upside as an Allen, a Jackson, a Daniels, a Jalen Hurts? Absolutely not, right? So I would want to get into the conversation of potentially having... Did you just take Kittle? Brother, you are a monster. You couldn't just let Kittle come down the board for me. I was keeping an eye out for that. I was like, man, I'm about to cash in on Kittle here. It's all good. Yeah, so as of right now, if you're in a complete rebuild and you're just looking to stack up 2026 firsts and rebuild your running back and wide receiver positions, then sure. Otherwise, if you don't have another quarterback that's even remotely as good as Mahomes, then it's probably just better to keep, because you are going to have that solidified position for up to the next decade here. All right, so I'm back on the clock. Best available running backs. We've got some pretty sweet options here. If I go look at my full PPR rankings, let's see here. Full PPR of the best available. I mean, I'm probably going in both of those directions. Subsequently, the tight end position has kind of been melted. Quarterback, still Joe Burrow. Yeah, you know what? I'll take the positional advantage at Burrow. And then I'll follow with James Conner. Good to go. I'm beginning to build a geriatric team, though. That's what's scaring the crap out of me. I'm building an old roster. Hey, old roster. Outside of Bijan and Joe Burrow, well, I guess A.J. Brown's not old, but Tyreek Hill and James Conner kind of scare me a little bit there, but I'll take the value of what I'm able to get him at. All right, let's see here. Montgomery or Waddle or Odunze? I guess it just depends purely on scoring format and whether you're looking for flex. If you're looking for purely flex, it depends on format of scoring. If we're talking about like a standard half PPR, just give me Montgomery there. If we're talking about a full PPR, at that point, I'm willing to go in the direction of Odunze. Any takes on the Jaguars backfield? Yeah, I think by the end of the season, Bigsby and Tootin will be splitting the backfield, just like kind of Rashad White and Bucky Irving were last year, and ETN falls to the wayside. Is Golden worth picking over Debo? I think so. This is the thing. If Terry McLaurin's going to be there, if we're going to see a lot of utilization of Zach Ertz once again, if there are going to be enough target competition to where Deebo Samuel is not going to have the designed plays that are sent in his direction like they have been in the past with the 49ers, in which they're able to get him plays to, across the middle of the field to make, to make his tough runs after the catch. If that's not going to be readily available to him, I'd rather just go get the number one receiving option of the Packers offense, which I know, is going to be throwing the ball a lot this upcoming season. At least in comparison to last. Let's see here. Where are we going? Jeff Miller in the chat. Jeff, thank you, man. Let's see what you have to say. Actually, really quickly before I do that. Okay, we already took care of Josh's question. Again, thank you again for that, Josh. I appreciate it. Okay, Jeff Miller says, in a 10-team half PPR, one quarterback, two running backs, three wide receivers, one tight end, two flex. What's your strategy on drafting receivers? How many should I aim for in the first 10 rounds? In a three wide receiver, two flex league, in a half PPR, within the first 10 rounds, I want to at very least have 6 wide receivers. Yeah. So 6 wide receivers, 2 to 3 running backs, and then I'm either punting on quarterback or tight end. If you were going to take a quarterback and tight end within the first 10 rounds, and you're not punting on either position, and you're trying to get a positional advantage on both spots, then at that point, you're going with a 5 wide receiver, 3 running back, 1 quarterback, 1 tight end build. But so it's 5 to 6. I think if you were to get to the 7 range, I think that's going to impact running back a little bit much in my mind. I think that makes it a little bit sketchier, but I'm looking for 5. Let's see here. Arlen in the chat says, how do I do in a 12-team full PPR? We have 1 quarterback, 1 flex. We have Kyler or Fields. Solid there. Kraft, I'm okay with, but I don't love. Tyreek, Adams, Jameson Williams, Adunze Coleman, solid. Christian McCaffrey, Chase Brown, Kamara, Brian Ross. Yeah, that's great. I think the only thing that's lacking on your team is Tucker Kraft. And the only reason I say, lacking is because his target opportunity share isn't great. So in a PPR, he's not going to get as much receptions as some of the rest of the field at the position. So it is a little bit sketchier or a little bit more implied that he needs to rely upon touchdowns to go in his direction for him to be a little bit more of a value spot there. But as of right now, I'm not opposed to this team. I think it's pretty solid across the board, pretty well built. Obviously, very much so contingent on Stafford and Devontae Adams being, secure and ready to go. But otherwise, those running backs are really just tough to look at and not think you're going to find success. Unk team just for Unk. Yeah, I mean, honestly, even though I said I have an older team, it's really just Tyreek Hill and James Conner that are the older players on my squad. But, I mean, if we're going to see Tyreek Hill fall off into oblivion, I'd be incredibly surprised. And then James Conner, I mean, again, in a full PPR last season was averaging 16 points per game. Like, I mean, I'll take that. I don't mind the value that I'm getting him at in the 5th round. Okay, let's see here. So, considering we still have availability at tight end to take advantages on someone like Laporta, who I know is dealing with a bit of an injury recently, which I don't love. Tony Pollard still being here is atrocious. Guys, we cannot let Tony Pollard fly this down. I mean, yeah, anyway. So let me just go ahead. Let's see here. All right, so I'm going to just do myself a quick favor. I'm going Ricky Pearsall, and I'm going Tony Pollard. Ricky Pearsall via the ADP on this site is a little bit of a steal. I continue to get him a little bit earlier than I want to, but it's fine. I'll take him at this point because I know by the time it comes back, one of you are going to snipe me on it. I just know it's going to happen. So I'll take my value there. I've secured my 3 wide receivers. I've secured my 2 running backs in my flex. And now I'm just continuing on probably in the idea of build. Oh, never mind. My YouTube just crashed. With the idea of most likely building a roster that it's going to be punting on tight end. And I'm fine with that because I know the value I'm going to get on him later on in this draft. Okay, let's see here. I need to pop this chat back out to here. There we go. That way I can at least see what you guys have to say. Daniel B says, I was literally about to take Ricky. Yeah, that's exactly why I'm jumping at it, because I know it's too valuable. Arlen says, thanks, use your code. Thank you, perfect. Again, if you guys want to get those draft rankings and, of course, subsequent Sunday morning rankings for the remainder of the season, if you use code Andrew on Betr, again, there's a link down in the description. All you have to do is use the code, make a first-time deposit minimum of $10, and then make a first-time play minimum of $1. Again, we've talked about the plays that we're making. This already went through in terms of the preseason. As for other plays that we can theoretically make, I've already made this play that I'm doing for like the futures of the NFL season. This play consisting of Christian McCaffrey going higher than 930.5 rushing yards, just going more on that, and then going more on Isaiah Pacheco's 720 rushing yards. So if that's something that interests you guys, of course, take advantage of it. Make a $1 play, and then you're good to go, and you'll get those rankings sent from my email directly to yours for the remainder of the season. Lee Flores says, what's a good guideline for the amount of each position to roster in a half PPR 10-man roster? When you say 10-man roster, do you mean 10-man league or 10-man roster? Because a roster would be like you only have 10 total players. Any clarification on that, Lee, would be appreciated. AM sends in a super chat. Thank you, AM. I greatly appreciate that. Says Baker, Connor, or Marion Hampton, Neighbors, London, Adams, Hawkinson, JMO, Emeka, B. Rob, Braylon, Jordan Mason, 10-team PPR. I think it's a solid squad, at least, at very least. Look, you start with a Neighbors London combo, which in a full PPR is a proper start. You're able to continue by getting value at Omarion Hampton, most likely, and Adams in that 3-4 turn. You get Connor in the 5th. You get JMO in the 6th. You're able to get, Brian Robinson for running back depth. I think it's a solid squad. I think your team is 100% contingent on that Adams combo. If Adams is able to do what he does, and we're not worrying about Stafford, then you're fine. That is going to be the difference maker. Now, again, if Adams even falls to the wayside for you, the fact that you do have JMO coming off the bench is ridiculous. So again, you've done a well enough job to where you've constructed a roster that is secure across the board. I'm not worried about it. I think you're in a good spot here. Smell My Finger says in a PPR, Christian McCaffrey or Neighbors in 1.07 took McCaffrey the last 2 years. So you've had the good and the bad. So you've seen what he's capable of, and you've also seen the volatility of his injury potential risk. Again, Smell My Fingers, this is the way that I've suggested it for many who play in potentially 1 to 2 leagues a season. If you're going to play in one season or one league this season, and your first round pick is going to potentially be Christian McCaffrey, if you are going to be incredibly upset if he gets injured, right? Just pick somebody else so that way you avoided the potential injury risk. Now, if you're asking me which direction I'm going in, I'm taking Christian McCaffrey maybe 9 times out of 10 against Neighbors at the 1.07. Let's see here. Humberto says, I haven't received any emails. Used the code and made some picks. That's interesting. Okay, so that is something that... Okay, so Humberto, this is what I want to say. If you can do me a favor, in the description of this live stream, there's a contact email, okay, which is my email. If you can do me a favor and send me a quick little email there so that I can see what your email is that is associated with your Betr account, I can cross-reference that with my list that I have available and then get that settled. Or potentially, if the email's been sent, it may be in your spam folder in terms of the rankings, because I sent out updated rankings yesterday morning. So that could be something that is left in your spam folder. Check that out. If it's not in your spam folder, do me a favor, go down to the description of this live stream and find my contact email and shoot me over an email so we can get that settled for you after the stream. Thank you again. Appreciate it. All right, so where are we at here? Debo Samuel, Jordan Addison, Jerry Jeudy, Jacoby Myers, Stephon Diggs, Rome Odunze, Cup going. Cup, guys, I don't know if I trust Cup this year. I'd rather have Coleman and I'd rather have Matthew Golden. I'd rather have Debo than him. What other wide receivers are available here? I mean, again, maybe I'm a Cup non-believer. I mean, I'd rather have Khalil Shakir. I'd rather have Jawan Jennings. I'd rather have Egbuka. There's still so much talent on the board available that I'm like, yeah, that's probably the direction I'm going in. What about WB? Did you all draft Rashee Rice so high? I have no idea why they drafted Rashee Rice so high. I think there's a contingency of people that believe that Rashee Rice in the 5th round is worth it. I don't see that. I would rather take him in the 8th. That's where I feel comfortable. Wide receiver 40, that sounds good to me. JFK 777 seems like he's AFK 777, AFK being away from keyboard, and Egbuka is off the board. He gets lucky and he gets blessed, and there goes Shakir. In this position, let's see here. I don't want running back anymore because I'm kind of solidified at that point. At tight end, tight end had a little bit of a run here, to which I'm thinking I'm going to keep kicking the can down the road. Okay, so the way that I see it, I have to go with probably a double wide receiver grab here. Do I take Jaylen Warren? Do I need 4 running backs? I don't need it. But I just don't like the value that I'm getting there. I'm just going to take Jaylen Warren. I don't even care. Okay, continuing on. Daniel B says it feels like there's no way that Coleman isn't the number one wide receiver of the Bills. No, I'd agree with you. I think that he has to be. Now, this is okay. So here's the thing: when you say number one wide receiver of the Bills, there is a value that's attached to it that may not be as, I would say, glorious as it once was, right? So we used to say, oh, the number one wide receiver of the Buffalo Bills is Stephon Diggs. And Stephon Diggs is capable of like 1,300 yards, 8 touchdowns, 100 grabs, like fantastic numbers across the board. That is not the potential of Coleman. Coleman's potential for upside is what Gabriel Davis used to do. And I think he's very similar in terms of the style of receiver. That's the reason why they brought him in. So if I'm looking at Keon Coleman, let's see here. We go to wide receiver. We go to, let's see. Like, in terms of the potential of what his statistics could end up looking like this season, like, when I look at what Gabriel Davis was able to do in his final 2 years with the Buffalo Bills, right? We have 836 yards and 7 touchdowns and 746 yards and 7 touchdowns, right? That's the kind of number line I'm expecting to see this year, to where he is going to make waves on a weekly basis, but ultimately I think that the highest value that he presents is when he scores touchdowns. So let's say if he scores 7-8 touchdowns this year within 14 games that are guaranteed to you, I'm saying this is prior to the fantasy playoffs. If let's say he doesn't score 7, let's say he scores 6 in those first 14 games. If you're getting like at least 50% of the time, double-digit fantasy points minimum with the touchdown production. If not, if he's able to have himself a game outside of the touchdown production to where he's able to elevate beyond, he's a solid play. He's a solid pick, especially considering we're getting him in the 8th round over here. But outside of that, the number one target getter and probably the receiver that has the most receptions for this team this season is going to be Khalil Shakir. All right. Johnny77 says, I'm here. Not sure how that happened, but I was trying to pick a book. But okay, yeah, perfect. So you probably put him as your favorite and then just selected him as that. You're good to go. No problemo. All right, so let's see here. So every other team in our draft, except for one, is taking a tight end. I know which tight ends I want, and I know what are available, and I'm just going to keep kicking it down the road because I'll just draft 2 tight ends and play matchups weekly. That's how I'll just function with this team. Let's see. Zach in the chat says, so I'm in a super flex. I have the 1.01. I can get Lamar, but my 2.12 and 3.01 turn would you rather have Fields or Knicks if they are available? Zach, I would suggest if you're going to have the 1.01, yes, take a quarterback, regardless of who it is. So if you're going to go Lamar. That's fantastic. If you have the availability of picking Bo Nix on that 2-3 turn, I would pick Bo Nix over Fields. Absolutely. And then pair him up with a wide receiver or running back and keep it moving, and you're good to go. Let's see here. What's up, Sip? How you doing? Victor says, what's the basic strategy for the first four rounds in a full PPR 12-man league? I mean, there isn't like you have to draft this way, right? I guess the balanced approach is 2 running backs and 2 wide receivers, right? That's the balanced approach. Otherwise, if you're trying to get a positional advantage, a quarterback and tight end, it'll then change it up a bit. Like the way that I went about this draft here, going Bijan, AJ Brown, Tyreek Hill, I saw Joe Burrow as a potential, okay, that's my 4th round selection, but I'm picking 4th and 5th back to back. So he's really just like a 5th round pick at that point. So I still kept with the 2 running backs, 2 wide receiver balance, and I just took the positional advantage of Burrow because I see him as so much better of a prospect than Mahomes, Mayfield, Knicks, all these guys. I see him as so much more upside that I'm willing to take him in that kind of 5th round value point. Victor also said, what's the highest that you're drafting Josh Allen? Mid to late 2nd round. So where he's taken right here is very, very strong. Like as of right now in a full PPR, I have him, let's see here. I have Josh Allen as my number 35 player. So theoretically speaking, I'd feel most comfortable taking Josh Allen if I had picks. Let's say if I picked here and Josh Allen fell to me at pick 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 of the 3rd round, that's where I'd feel most comfortable taking him because, yeah, I'd feel really comfortable taking Josh Allen on this turn here because I know that I can get comprehensive value on this 4th round that is going to be very similar to that third round potential. So yeah, that's kind of where I'd go about it. Alrighty, let's see here. Bread says, "What's up, brother? Yo, I'm in a 14-man full PPR keeper. Second round looks like a wasteland. Achane, BTJ, Chase Brown, Bucky, Bowers, McBride all gone. Would it be crazy to take Hampton on the turn? Considering you're playing in a keeper league that's 14 teams, no, I don't think it's crazy. Because again, you got to think about it this way. If 14 players are already being kept, that means that one round of players are already washed out. Then you go ahead and you talk about first round. There's another 14 players gone. So then you're getting into the second round, theoretically, of your league. And if you have a middle of the third round selection, that means about, technically, we have 35-ish players off the board, which in my current position, if I look at like would you say you're in a, where are you? Where did the question go? Yeah, you're in a 14-man full PPR. In a full PPR format, Hampton, yeah, at pick like 35 is perfectly fine. If guys like James Cook are gone and you're looking for running back value, Hampton's the next best available on my board in a full PPR. I'm taking him in that second round technically. So yeah, that's cool with me. I have no problem with that at all. No issues. Okay, let's see here. What do you think about taking George Kittle in the second round? At second round in the fourth spot. 10-man league. No, thank you. I'd rather have McBride and I'd rather have Bowers because especially if you're playing in any sort of PPR functionality, the point per reception value that those other two have in comparison are significantly more upside potential. And of course, he always has injury-riddled history, so Kittle's a little bit less valuable. Again, where he's taken right here at the 4.9, I think is a little bit of a discount. I think he should probably go in the beginning of the fourth round for my kind of taste. Ceiling on Hampton and floor. I think the floor of Hampton is probably RB20. I think the ceiling is probably RB11. So when we get him at 16, I think it's really powerful. I think if we get him at the 15th running back off the board, I think it's great. As of this draft, we had 12 running backs selected in front of him. So he's RB13 off the board, which again, when you're drafting him as RB13, he has to produce at that kind of a level. He's going to have to finish his RB 11 through 15 to find that medium of 13 to make it a solidified play. Even if he finishes at RB 18 as the 13th pick, if he's able to stay healthy for the entire season, I'm cool with it. But again, when you're drafting him ahead of some of these other alternative backs like a Kamara or a Cook, who I have ranked higher, just 1 or 2 spots ahead of him, sure. But when you're still doing that, it does make it a little bit more intrinsically risky. In the approach. Okay, let's see here. So I've gone ahead and there goes the Kincaid pick that I wanted. That's not a problem. So I have Tucker Kraft available. I'm going to assume that none of you are going to take a second tight end. If you do, so be it. Then I'll just go and get another tight end way later in the draft. I need to solidify wide receiver once again. So the way that I see it, where did the pick go that I wanted? I kind of want to just do that, just to kind of throw a wrench in the system. That's fine by me. All right, we'll keep moving. I'll get my tight end in the last 2 rounds. Okay, so where are we at? Egbuka, Keenan Allen, Mooney in round 10. Egbuka is the 10th round, like, must-have at that point. But that's the thing. You're not going to get him in the 10th. Like, the way that I see it, majority of the time, if Egbuka is going to be selected, it's probably going to be in that 9th or 8th round. Like, he's going to, as long as we continue to see Chris Godwin missing time, Egbuka is going to keep going up draft boards. Mooney's still dealing with an injury. Keenan Allen is up there in age, and he's not going to be playing in the slot. So Keenan Allen's somebody that I'm not too interested in. Jeek sends in a question. Says, in a 10-team full PPR. All right, Jeek, let's see what you have here really quickly. So Jeek says the following. 10-team full PPR redraft. 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, 2 flex. I have the pick number 5. Who would you take in order from top 5 based on who falls? I mean, look, this is the way that I see it, right? If I was selecting in front of you in a full PPR as the top 4 selections, I'm taking Bijan, Chase, most likely. You know what? No one's taking McCaffrey in front of you. I would do it, but no one's doing it. The first 4 selections are going to be some combination of Chase, Bijan, Gibbs, Barkley, and Jefferson. Whichever one of those falls to you, you're good to go with. If I'm you and I'm picking at the 1.05, I'm taking McCaffrey. If ends up going where Chase, Bijan, Barkley, and Jefferson are selected in front of you, you take Gibbs and you run. And that's fine if you're afraid of the McCaffrey potential. If you're in a situation in which you're thinking to yourself, Jefferson probably doesn't get picked because of the injury risk, and the first 4 selections are Chase, Bijan, Gibbs, and Barkley, and you're worried about Jefferson's injury history, and you're worried about Christian McCaffrey's injury history, and I can't convince you otherwise, then you go with Lamb. You got to not play scared, though. That's the thing. Would you rather have... Okay, Maddox in the chat says, would you rather go Gibbs, BTJ, or Gibbs and Henry? It depends on scoring format. If we're talking about a half PPR, I'd probably feel really comfortable going Henry and Gibbs because I have both those players higher ranked. If we're talking about a full PPR, I'd rather go Gibbs and BTJ. Enrique says, in a 14-team redraft PPR, I've ended up with Jaden Daniels, Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, Tyreek Hill, Rashee Rice, Tyler Warren, Tedero McMillan, Olave, Fields, Eckler, Jaden Blue, Strange, Douglas, Chubb. Any trade recommendations? Look, at this point, I think the most vulnerable your team consists of... Yeah, there's not really much of a vulnerability to this team. You have built it in a proper fashion to where I don't even believe that you're playing in a 14-team league. That's far too stacked of a roster in my mind to think that that's a 14-team roster. So I don't know how you ended up getting all these great players, Enrique, but congratulations. You don't need to move. You're good to go. Don't overthink it. Just let these studs carry you, like legitimately. That's a really good team. Let's see here. Beast sends in a question. Says, love the vids, man. Always help out. Thank you very much. I greatly appreciate it. If you have any questions, please let me know. Brady in the chat says, in a 10-team redraft PPR, I'm at the 1.02. What team looks... what does your team look like after the 1-2 turn? Am I crazy to go 3 running backs in my first 3 picks? I mean, okay, let's just look at it this way really quickly. Let me make a couple tight end selections here. So I would theoretically just go like this and go like this and then come back. Okay. So let me swap the structure here real quick. Okay, so you guys see this third pick? This is what you're talking about, right? Or the second pick, Brady. Okay, in a 10-team league, theoretically speaking, okay, so if we eliminate the back end of these selections over here in terms of 11 and 12, if we push the value down and you started with an RB at 1.02, let's say you had Bijan at 1.02, and guys like Taylor fall to you, and guys like, let's say, Kyron fall to you, and you started Bijan, Taylor, and Kyron, I don't have an issue with that. But again, it's purely just a matter of, in this league, how many wide receivers can we start? If you can start 3 wide receivers, then I think it's a mistake, and I think you need to build by getting wide receiver depth on that turn, by selecting 2 running backs and 1 wide receiver minimum. Otherwise, getting yourself the idea of even 2 wide receivers isn't a bad idea. But considering what's available on the turn, A.J. Brown, Tyreek Hill, stuff like that, if you're worried about their injury history or their potential, then you lean in the direction of most likely just, yeah, I don't mind the triple RB start. You just have to live with the wide receivers that are lower down the board that have high volatility and potential of not living up to potential, kind of fantasy ADP value. Let's hear. Michael Jordan in the chat says, I'm in the second round, Josh Jacobs, Chase Brown, Bucky Irving, 12-team full PPR. For me, almost every time I'm taking Chase Brown there. Like, just eyes closed, he's auto-picked. Uncle Neil, what's up, man? AM says, Andrew, how are you? Great to see you back for a new season. Thank you very much, AM. Your question goes as follows. 10-team full PPR. You know what's happening? I'm having like a frame issue here. There we go. All right. I don't know why I'm having like frame lag on my end, but hopefully it's not laggy on stream. 10-team PPR 2 flex, 6 point per passing touchdown. Okay, interesting. Should I value quarterbacks higher because of this? Yes, absolutely. If I was in your position, I think Josh Allen should be a late first round selection. I think Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson should be early second round selections in my mind. So yes, I would absolutely, in your position in a 10-team league on that 1-2 turn, absolutely be valuing quarterbacks high enough to address them, because a quarterback like Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson are going to be capable of scoring potentially 480 to 500 fantasy points this season, which the value drop off from the rest of the field in comparison is such a significance that the running backs and wide receivers you would have selected aren't going to have that much of a drop off to, a second compared to a third round or fourth round selection. So yes, it is in your best interest to address quarterback relatively early because of the 6-point per passing touchdown format additionally. Alrighty, let's see here. Scrolling down. Cody says, "Miss you, man. Welcome back." Thank you, Cody. I appreciate that, my man. Johnny7 says, "Are we going to go over this draft before starting another one?" Yeah, we probably will, but just got to give me a second. I got to catch up on some of these questions. Trex98 says, "In a 12-team, 2-flex, half PPR league, I feel nervous about selecting the high-end tight ends. What positional advantage would you rather have, quarterback or tight end?" I think it's purely just a matter of where you're selecting from. Like, okay, so theoretically speaking, we'll review this draft in just a second here. So let me pop it up on screen. So theoretically, right, when we're talking about the potential of selecting a high-end tight end in a 12-team league, okay, as such, if you have the opportunity, because again, we all know that Bowers is going to go in the second in a full PPR. If you have the opportunity of McBride in the third, and then Kittle on that 3rd/4th turn, then you go for it. Outside of that, I'm punting on tight end. Additionally, and again, if they fall even further down, you're taking them, right? But I'm just saying, like, that's the earliest I would go for them. As for quarterback, again, I prefer to get my quarterback, especially these top two, Allen and Lamar, at the back end of the third. And I would rather have Jaden Daniels and Jalen Hurts in the 4th with Burrow in the 5th. Again, I take Burrow a little bit earlier because he pretty much qualifies as my 5th round selection on the 4-5 turn. But as of right now, that's kind of the way that I go about it. I think there are more opportunities for you to get the positional advantage at quarterback because there are 5 stud quarterbacks in comparison to only 3 stud tight ends this upcoming season, at least from our perspective and our perception of what we think is going to transpire this season. So I think it is easier to get the advantage at quarterback because, again, there's more volume there. Let's see. Now, speaking of reviewing this draft, I know JFK had mentioned that. So let's see. He went Chase, he went Kyron, he went Garrett Wilson. Again, Garrett Wilson in the 3rd round is incredibly expensive in my mind. I do love the selections of Kenneth Walker and Harvey in rounds 4 and 5. I like Bo Nix. I think he's okay in the 6th. I don't love him in the 6th ultimately. I think he's more of a 7th or 8th round selection in my mind. Judy in the 7th is solid. My issue here is Garrett Wilson. But again, I could be totally wrong. What if Garrett Wilson comes out and absolutely kills it this season? There's always a chance of that. You never know. There's always the potential. Again, a lot of what we do in August is speculatory, to where we are assuming players are going to play up to a specific standard. Now, every season, players improve, players fall to the wayside. And that is just the nature of the beast of fantasy football and the sport of football in itself. So we'll just have to wait and see. But as of right now, Garrett Wilson in the 3rd, as like the 12th or 13th wide receiver off the board, that gives me a heartburn almost immediately. Alrighty, let's see here. Where are we at? Okay, scrolling down, we had a question that came in from Luis, who says, in a heavy RB 12 team draft at 10, I need to go RB back-to-back with I need to go RB back-to-back. Bijan, Barkley, Gibbs, Henry, Christian McCaffrey will probably be gone. Suggestions. Okay, cool. So if those top 5 running backs are gone, and you are picking back-to-back running backs in the late 1st round, I am suggesting you take Genty and you take Achane in whichever order you see fit. Arlen says, what's your take on Tyreek having a bust season? I feel like everything I'm hearing from the Dolphins this offseason is stinky. I mean, here's the thing. Last season, obviously he didn't benefit from the absence of Tua. Now, even when Tua returned, he didn't benefit from his reintegration within the offense. But again, Tyreek Hill was dealing with an injury himself last year. I think at a full healthy position, Additionally, with the potential of no Jonnu Smith, so less target opportunity for the tight end position. Darren Waller doesn't look like he's firing up anytime soon. There should be a little bit more of an uptick of opportunity share to where Tyreek Hill is getting back to more of his 2023 base of statistics. Now, is he going to finish as the wide receiver 2? He has the potential of that, but I think where we currently have him kind of selected as a wide receiver number 10 overall to 12, 13 is the proper kind of positional value for what his upside can relate to and his potential floor. Okay, let's see here. Are we drafting another mock? Yes, absolutely. Just a moment, please. Let me send this text. All right, cool. James sends in a question. Thank you very much, James. I appreciate it. It says, welcome back, buddy. Question, we have a 10-team half PPR league. Pick number 10, Genty or Achane. Okay, if you're playing in a half PPR format, even in a half PPR, I'd rather have Achane, legitimately. Achane's my preference between the two, half or full. Only in a standard league am I taking Genty there. And which wide receiver do you would you like there? And which wide receiver would you like there? If I have the 10th pick, which wide receiver would I like to drop to me at that position? I mean, in a half PPR format, if there's a potential in which Amon-Ra is there or Malik Neighbors is there, I'm perfectly fine with either of those two. If CeeDee Lamb is there and you got incredibly lucky, you take that. So Lamb, St. Brown, Neighbors. Those are the three that you would want to try to get at that 1.10. Let's see here. OJ says in a 12-team full PPR. Or also, you had another question here, James. You said thoughts on Graham. When you say Graham, I don't even know who you like. The only Graham that I can think of off the top of my head is like Graham Gano. So do you mean Ingram and it like auto corrected? I don't know. Who's Graham? Let's see here. Kevin says ideal guy to get pick number 3 full PPR in a 12-team 3 wide receiver league. The ideal player to get at the 1.03 would be Jamar Chase. That would be the ideal because of the 3 wide receiver positional kind of advantage you would get there. So as of right now, that's the ideal player. You hope that the first 2 selections consist of Barkley and Bijan, and you get Chase at the 1.03. Lee Flores says Cooper Kupp or Golden. I'd rather have Golden this season. Who are some players you're lower on than consensus ADP this year? Who am I lower on than consensus ADP? Let's look at this list. I don't like Breece Hall. I am very much so doubting the potential usage numbers. Because of the rushing quarterback, there is often less passing opportunity to the backfield, and I think this is going to be a committee situation. So Breece Hall is someone that I'm legitimately afraid of. Another player that has often kind of sketched me out as of late is Marvin Harrison Jr. So those are probably the 2 that I'm like most kind of risky. I don't really want to buy in too heavily on them. Let's see here. Cavalry says, so I found out my league is a keeper league, not a dynasty league. Now do you think the top 5 is Chase, Jefferson, Neighbors, Lamb, and Bijan? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes. If it's a keeper league, well, no, this is the thing. If it's a keeper league, how many players can you keep every season? Once you answer that question, Cavalry, I'll give you a better idea as to how it's going to structure out with the first 5 selections. What's good, Andrew? I'm in a PPR 6-point per passing touchdown league. I got the 2nd pick in a 2 QB 8-man league. Given I hopefully get Bijan, would you grab a tight end or quarterback after? I would grab a quarterback after, especially considering the 6-point per passing touchdown format. I would think that you're probably it's in your best interest to get the positional advantage of quarterback in the 2nd round. And if tight end still falls to you in the 3rd, you can address that, but I don't think tight end is necessary in an 8-man league. So if I was in your position, I'm going, easily with the running back followed by the followed by the quarterback in the 2nd round. Review test of teams in mock. Kaiser, which team were you? Kaiser, I see your team. Let's go ahead and look at it real quick. Kaiser went McCaffrey and Chase Brown, which I love. I like McCaffrey at the value you get him. I like Chase Brown at the value you get him. You get JSN in a full PPR, beautiful in the third. You follow with DJ Moore and McMillan, which are solid. You get a fat sleeper with Isaiah Pacheco somehow in the sixth, which is incredible. Diggs in the seventh, and Njoku in the eighth, Mason in the ninth. You address your quarterback in the 10th. I think this is the proper way to build it. This in a 3 wide receiver full PPR format, perfect. You get Njoku listen, usually in my leagues, I'm able to get my Njoku. This time around, you guys went on an absolute tight end tear in the 8th round. Usually I'm able to get, because usually Kelsey goes before this, and usually, Njoku kind of falls back to me at this point. So that's what I was hoping for. Didn't obviously come to fruition, but that's an incredible build for the first 9 selections there. To say the first 10, excuse me. To say the very least. Let's see here. We took care of that. Is Puka outside of your top 15? Feels risky. Cheers, my friend. I mean, look, I don't know what the status of Matthew Stafford is. As of today, we were supposed to get some more clarity as to the reports of whether or not he is available, active. Let me see if there's any viable reports right now on the internet regarding the status of Matthew Stafford practicing today. Let me just go ahead. Let me travel on over to the reliable sources here. 1 hour ago, Matthew Stafford is on the field. Is he practicing? Let's see here. I don't see anything. As of 1 hour ago, they were warming up on the field. So if the media did not get allowed coverage to be out there, at least what is promising is that Stafford was out there warming up. So that's good. So we'll keep an eye on that as we progress. But if Stafford is available, I know somebody in the chat had also asked how much of a drop-off is the value of guys like Puka Nacua, and this is Arlen's question exactly. He says, how much of a downgrade is Jimmy Garoppolo for fantasy purposes for the wide receivers like Devontae Adams, Puka Nacua? Even with Jimmy, you think Devontae finishes as a top 26 wide receiver? That's where I've got him, LOL. So I think the answer to that question, I think it's relatively simple. When did Jimmy Garoppolo play for if I'm not mistaken, Jimmy Garoppolo played for the Las Vegas Raiders in the first 8 weeks of the 23 season. Is that correct? Am I misremembering? Let me check. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. So Jimmy Garoppolo played for Las Vegas for 7 games. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's cross-reference the first 7 games of value for both Jacoby Myers and Devontae Adams for the first 7 weeks of the 2023 season. I just want to go ahead and get an understanding as to the value of those 2 wide receivers, effectively with Jimmy Garoppolo as their starting quarterback. So throughout that span of time, in terms of fantasy points per game on average, Devontae Adams for the first 7 weeks of the season, with Jimmy G as his quarterback, was averaging 13.4 half PPR fantasy points per game. In a full PPR throughout that span of time, Devontae Adams was averaging 16.7 fantasy points per game. He was the number 15 wide receiver throughout that span of time. So again, pretty solid production. Now, if we look at Jacoby Myers as the next other wide receiver, in a full PPR, he was averaging 17.6 fantasy points per game. In a half PPR, he was averaging a total of 14.5 fantasy points per game. So if we just travel back to 2023, Jimmy Garoppolo, he was able to support 2 top 16 wide receivers for fantasy purposes on a point per game average basis. Now, even if we go further beyond that, we talk about Jimmy Garoppolo and his potential, and him being able to support wide receivers as a member of the 49ers. Let's see here. The 49ers, when did he have like a stint of play prior to his injury? So weeks 2 through 12 of the 2022 season. So let's go ahead and let's look at that. 2 through 12. All right. Throughout that span of time, if we look at San Francisco wide receivers, right? So we are specifically looking for Brandon Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk throughout that time was averaging 12 points per game. And then let's see. And Deebo Samuel was averaging 11.5 points per game. So Deebo Samuel was wide receiver 21 throughout that span of time, and Ayuk was wide receiver 19. So even in that case, in the most recent 2022 stint of Garoppolo with the 49ers, he was able to support 2 top 21 wide receivers in a half PPR in terms of his stint. So again, is it a major downgrade? No. I think Puka is still top 15 easy. I think Adams is still top 20 easy. Because when you have Sean McVay there, who in his own right is a quarterback whisperer, I think there's a potential which Jimmy Garoppolo can get the job done. Let's see here. Matthew sends in a question, says, I'm in a 10-team standard league, drafting 7th. All my mock drafts, I've picked Henry at the 1.07. My second round usually consists of having Irving, Kyron, Jacobs, Achane, Brown. Any suggestions for my double running back strat? Yeah, I mean, look, if you're playing in a standard league where you get 0 points per reception, if I was you, I'm most likely leaning towards... I'll take Bucky Irving there. Out of those available, I'll take Bucky. Because of the lack of receiving, or because of the reliability of Chase Brown and Achane having to kind of really depend upon those receptions carrying their value, I'll just go with the running back that is entirely just right next to them, that isn't as dependent, but also has additional upside with the receiving yardage and touchdowns category, to where I'd go Bucky as my second round pick there. If you wanted to go Jacobs, that's fine. If you wanted to go Kyron, that's fine. But I think Irving is my preferred. Evan says, where does Joe Burrow rank among quarterbacks in a 6-point per passing touchdown format? I'd probably have him as my number 3 quarterback. So he would basically, it would go Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Joe Burrow as my number 3. And then I would go with Jaden Daniels 4 and Jalen Hurts 5. Cody says, would you consider Bryce Young a good third quarterback in a super flex? No, I don't consider him a good third quarterback. I consider him a fantastic third quarterback. That would be incredible based on what he is capable of accomplishing this upcoming season. So yeah, that would be fantastic. Alrighty, let's go ahead and let's conduct another mock draft really quickly. So I'm assuming majority of you are playing. You know what we could do? What I haven't done as of late is constructed a 10-team draft. I know many of you do play in a 10-team draft, so maybe we should do that. I know it does consist of less teams, but I think it may be something that you guys are interested in, just to kind of get an idea as to where you're selecting from accordingly. So let's just build that out really quickly. We're going to go with a 30-second pick timer, just so it's a quicker draft. I think that's basically it. I'm going to put myself at the back end of the first round, and we'll see how it functions. And then I'm going to drop the link in the live stream chat right now, and then hopefully y'all can join. If a lot of you join instantly and we need to expand it to 12 teams, I don't mind doing that. I was just curious to see if you guys wanted to potentially see how a 10-team draft breaks down accordingly. So we can explore that as of right now. Actually, before we do, before I have the ball flip, no, come back. Yeah, there you go. Before we do, again, a couple reminders. Again, if you guys want to get my draft rankings, Better's the way to do it. There's a link down in the description. When you use code Andrew, make that first time deposit minimum of $10 and make that first time play. Again, whether that is within the NFL futures plays, the preseason, accordingly, etc. You just have to play $1 within the picks entries. Again, we can go ahead and travel on over. A play can consider, Christian McCaffrey going higher than 930, going more than 930 rushing yards this season, or Isaiah Pacheco going more than 720 rushing yards this season. You don't even have to put down 10. You can just make a $1 play, and then I'll go ahead and send you those emails on a weekly basis for the remainder of the season, and we will be good to go. Outside of that, again, a bunch of you joined. Go 12. Okay, let's go 12. So I'll go ahead and I will settings. We'll go 12. We'll update that, and then hopefully those of you can click the link and join. I'll sit at the 1.10 still. That's fine. If somebody wants to clean in or jump in after me, we could do that. Will Kyron be affected by Jimmy G? I think the entire offense is subsequently downgraded in terms of points per game on average, but we'll see. All right, so again, this is a draft in which I just want to show you guys the settings. 12 teams, full PPR, 3 wide receivers, and we have a 30-second pick timer. So don't fall asleep, and best of luck, and enjoy the draft. Here we go. Let's see here. Adam sends in a question. Adam, thank you very much. It says, in a 10-team keeper league, in a half PPR scoring format, with 2 flex, do I keep Christian McCaffrey / Neighbors to keep I don't have my first pick, but have 2/5. Who should I keep, and what strategy should I go with my early rounds given my keeper? Okay, so if you're playing in a half PPR keeper league, where are you keeping Christian McCaffrey and or Neighbors? Are they outside of your draft? So what I'm asking is, are they being kept in position of a, like, if you keep McCaffrey, is he kept as your 3rd round pick or is he your 1st round pick? Or are they completely excluded from the draft itself? That's what I'm curious about. I know you don't have a first, so I just want to know if Christian McCaffrey or Neighbors within the rules of your league. Okay, I need to make a selection here because I am on the clock. What is the best available player? Looking at what's available, we have Henry, we have Puka. No, I don't really like that. I'll take my Derrick Henry chances here. But honestly, I like Achane, so let's just take Achane there on the turn. That's cool with me. Considering it's a full PPR, Achane is my preferred. That's just the way that I function in this kind of capacity, guys. I'd rather have the receiving upside that Achane presents, which again, last season was a ridiculous kind of volume of opportunity. Now, as for where the 2nd round goes for me, I'm probably going wide receiver here. Had Puka or Nico Collins fallen to me, I would be very happy in that situation. If a running back, by the case of Genty falls, I'll go double RB just to kind of give it a whirl. If that doesn't take place, then Brian Thomas Jr. could be something. I mean, it's really just a matter of like, how do we want to build this team? I think both scenarios of going Genty and or Brian Thomas are incredibly beneficial. At this point, I'm thinking, I think I go Brian Thomas. Like I have a hard time not in a full PPR going with the wide receiver, considering I'm playing in a league in which my draft settings consist of 3 starting wide receivers, 2 running backs, and the full PPR functionality. I just think that that's just the best approach on that turn. Okay, so Adam, you said yes, outside of my draft, not included in my draft. Cool, perfect, thank you. So in this circumstance, Daniel said go Genty. Yeah, okay, well, maybe next time around. Look, in a full PPR, going double RB is very, very, very sketchy. Not included in my draft, completely outside of my draft. Basically, in the 1st round, is average drafts 2nd round. Cool. So in this league, can you keep Neighbors and Christian McCaffrey next season? If you can keep them for multiple years back to back to back to back, I'm keeping Neighbors for the remainder of the future. If you can't keep them next season, then I'm keeping Christian McCaffrey because I think that gives you the best chance of winning this season. Trenton in the chat says, in a Superflex Dynasty, start 9. Half PPR London plus is fair for Mahomes. Just curious. What is London plus? What does London plus mean? Jacob03 in the chat says, between James Cook, Kamara, Kyron, and Chase Brown, who do you take in a standard scoring format? I would take Kyron. Well, yeah, I would probably take Kyron Williams there in a standard scoring format where you get 0 points per reception. What's your take? What does this say? Arlen says, what's your take on Chase Brown? You think Brooks and Pirine have a chance to make? No, absolutely not. Look, I think Chase Brown is probably the player that I am most above consensus on out of just about everybody. I love Chase Brown this season. I'm all in. I have planted the flag, and I am going to let him ride me either into the ground and into the graveyard or in the complete opposite direction to where we go to the promised land. That's how I'm functioning this season with him. What's the plus, or are you saying what's equal sum of 1? No, I mean, like, okay, so your question, Trenton, was half PPR London plus question mark is fair for Mahomes. Just curious. I don't know what the question mark sign means. I don't know what that means in a dynasty. That's what I'm curious about. Justin Weaver sends in a question. Justin, thank you very much. Says, I have the number 4 spot in a 2 wide receiver, 2 flex format. Start 8 league. Thinking CeeDee Lamb, but Hero RB sounds nice. In a 2 wide receiver, 2 flex format, 8-team league, if you have the number 4 spot, CeeDee Lamb is perfectly fine if it's a full PPR. If it's not a full PPR, I'm probably going RB there. Like a first. London plus a first is fair for Mahomes? Just curious. I'd rather have London in a first. Because unless you're playing, oh, it's a super flex. Yes. London in a first is worth Mahomes. Correct. Yes. Because of the super flex format, it is correct. Or a second. Yeah. So London, yes. Theoretically, because it's Mahomes and because it's a super flex and because it's a dynasty, you have to basically give him a haul for Mahomes, to which I think London in a first actually makes sense. Which I know it's expensive, but because you're going to have the value of Mahomes for a decade plus here, it's comparable. All right, Kamara goes right before me in this draft. What are the best available wide receivers? We have Marvin Harrison, Terry McLaurin, Devontae Adams, Rashee Rice, DK Metcalf. Okay. Nothing too interesting in that situation. We have tight ends available with George Kittle, but I don't really want to reach on George Kittle. At this point, like I'm okay with Hampton at this point. He is technically the best available back. I'll take Hampton here, knowing that, okay, so the way that I look at this and the reason why I take Hampton, I know that this team on the very end at 12 most likely is going to need to address running back. So if I don't take Hampton, the likelihood is that they're going to take Hampton and pretty much leave me dry in terms of the ability to get him in the fourth. So because I know he has to address running back, which again, he subsequently will, I have to select a running back here, knowing because of this double wide receiver start. Now, this team here does me a favor of taking McLaurin in their third round selection, which again continues to allow other potential wide receivers that I would rather have come down the board in my direction. Now, this also presents the opportunity in which in the fourth round, I could go quarterback if I see that as the best available option and I don't like the remaining wide receivers, running backs, etc. But as of right now, he goes, wow, okay, great. So look, at this point, at the 4.3, I have many of incredible options here. I could go quarterback with Jalen Hurts, with Jaden Daniels. But as of right now, and I will continue to, just go in this direction, I'll take George Kittle here. I will deal with wide receiver in the 5th, 6th, 7th. I do not mind going and getting my advantage here accordingly. Besides Burrow plus Chase, what other pair do you see as stack worthy? I always think that, okay, so besides Burrow and Chase, I think Burrow and Higgins is also very valuable. But what I have found in my drafts as we've kind of conducted them, I think a Purdy Kittle stack is great. I think Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown, just like it's done right here next to me, is great. I think the idea of stacking, we want touchdown upside, right? So if we're looking for just exclusive stacks, touchdown upside has to be involved. Otherwise, it makes it a little bit less enticing. Like, I'm okay with the idea of stacking like Lamar with Mark Andrews because, again, touchdowns are a little bit more prevalent in comparison to what Zay Flowers would potentially provide in that scenario. Jaden Daniels, McLaurin is solid, again, especially considering how many touchdowns they stacked up for last season. Again, I don't really see quarterback and a receiver or tight end stack as something that I need to have. I'm actually more interested in doing stuff like if I was going to have, theoretically speaking, let's say I have, what's an example I can give? Let's say I have Bijan on roster. I wouldn't be afraid of taking London. I don't mind having both of the primary threats of that singular offense because I know that regardless of who finds the end zone, I'm getting whatever Atlanta touchdowns are scored this season. But those are just some of the options. Kyle says, would you keep Josh Allen or Derrick Henry in a keeper redraft? It depends. Can you keep them again next season? And if the answer is yes to that, then I'm most likely keeping Josh Allen because I'd rather keep him year over year for the next 5 years rather than Derrick Henry. Even though they're like a 1 or 2 round separation, I think the consistent level of being able to keep them year over year presents a little bit more value there. CS Derek sends in a question. Thank you, Derek. I appreciate that. Sorry for the lagged response here. CS Derek says, rate my dynasty startup in a PPR 2 quarterback 3 flex league. We have Purdy, JJ, Bijan, Gibbs, T, Marv, Trey, Chase, Brown. We have Rome. We have Olave. Okay, so here's the thing. You're playing in a 2 QB league, and I'm assuming JJ is JJ McCarthy. So you have Purdy and JJ McCarthy, who are both young and going to be solid. You have Bijan Gibbs, which is crazy. You have T. Higgins, Marvin Harrison, Trey McBride, Chase Brown. I don't know what happened in your league here, CS Derek, but you've somehow bamboozled the rest of your. I don't know. I don't know how you came about finding all this youth and talent, but congratulations. You pretty much just, yeah, well done. That's all I have to say. Well done. All right, where are we at in terms of this draft? Where are we going? Isaiah Pacheco in the 5th, a little bit rich for my blood. I think you could have got him in the next round, but I guess technically he is the best available. Actually, maybe not the best available. Where's Chuba Hubbard? Chuba Hubbard's off the board. Connor went in the 5th after Hubbard, which is crazy to me. But it's okay. I think the best availables are probably like Harvey at this point. Harvey, Henderson, Pollard. There goes Henderson. Yeah, there's some good value there. Do I need a running back? No. I'm more interested in wide receiver at this point, to which I see Jamison Williams available. Is Teteroa McMillan available, or did someone yoink that already? Teteroa McMillan's already been taken. Okay, so in that case, I definitely need to address wide receiver. I'll go ahead and do that with Jamison Williams in this circumstance. Pretty happy being able to get him in the 5th. And continue to build wide receiver, in which I took a little bit of a discount on the position, having gone with Kittle, but I'm pretty happy with how that kind of turned out. Ethan says, do you think Rashee Rice will likely be suspended this season or next season? I expect it to be this season, and I expect it to be 6 games minimum. Let's see here. I had both Bijan and Lennon last season. It was fun. Hopefully this season they'll be better. Yeah, I think they should be better this season. Harvey at the back end of this, that's a fantastic selection. Well done there. Well done there. Pretty good looking team at the very end there. A lot of wide receiver depth, pretty solid RBs that can outproduce their ADP. Loving it. Picking Kelsey in the 5th round, I think is absolutely diabolically crazy. Can I tell you why? So if I was sitting here, just strategically speaking, okay, I would have taken Harvey here, because I know that this team needs a second running back at the very end. And if you can see where my mouse is, this is what I'm talking about. Me, the way that I would have built this is I would have waited on Kelsey and taken him here and taken Harvey here. If you were going to like, I have to leave Kelsey, or I have to leave this draft with Kelsey, that's the way that I would have went about it. Tony Pollard still being available is kind of crazy, but at this point, considering what's available at wide receiver, I'm kind of just, I don't want to take, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'll take my Tony Pollard and I'll let it come back, because I think there's enough wide receiver depth in the 7th to where I can get the value I want. Okie dokie. Continuing on. The stat you said about Aubrey and Kittle is crazy. Listen, Brandon Aubrey is not fair. Let's just put it that way. If you play in a league with kickers, Brandon Aubrey is just not fair. Legitimately. The fact that, what was the stat again? I think it was in the last 2 seasons, Aubrey's only scored 5 less fantasy points than Kittle in a half PPR. It's just not normal, but it is what it is. Casey Hammock says Josh Allen, James Conner, Bijan, Jacoby Myers, Calvin Ridley, Trey McBride, and Javonte Williams in a 12-man PPR. Thoughts? I don't like Javonte Williams. That's first and number 1. Trey McBride, solid. Jacoby Myers, solid. Calvin Ridley, solid. Connor, Bijan, Josh Allen, solid. My only question is, where did the wide receiver value go in your draft? Because if you went Bijan number 1, Josh Allen or McBride number 2 and 3, in the 4th round, you're grabbing Connor, which I think is a little bit rich considering the league that we're playing in right now. That's a PPR. Connor's going in round 4 or 5 usually. So if you took him in the 4th, it's okay, but it's a little bit early, because again, he could fall to the 5th. And then Jacoby Myers in the 6th, again, I think is okay, but I'd rather wait on him and go someone else. I think you're just maybe drafting a little bit ahead of where these prospects need to go in comparison to what may be available. But again, I don't know. You're playing in a 12-team league. Maybe it's a little bit more, wide receiver and running back focused, and less quarterback focus early on from teams, which kind of push everything down the board. You're not getting Ricky Pearsall. Arlen, listen, I'm going to try my best to force you guys to let Ricky Pearsall drop to me. If he ends up going, so be it. Somebody else is going to benefit from his services. But the fact that, again, I have Pearsall so much higher ranked than then Samuel and Addison. I have him legitimately 12 spots ahead of both those players, and there he goes. I talk about him for a little bit. He's going to come off the board. It's not a problem. That's one of the players that I'm do or dying on this season. I'll die on the Ricky Pearsall-Hill. Nate says, Josh Allen, AJ Brown, Tyreek Hill, Saquon Barkley, Breece Hall, Laporta, Devontae Smith, 8-man league thoughts. I think it's solid. I mean, again, you're pretty much stacked at all positions across the board. Hopefully you have enough depth for, the kind of rotational matchups, but I think you're in a pretty good spot. Let's see here. Derek says, should I keep Bowers in the 8th pick or Daniels is my 10th pick? We can keep them for 2 years max. Second year becomes the first round pick automatically. Yeah, if I was in your position, I'm keeping Bowers. Let's see here. Lee Flores says thoughts on Tyler Loop. The kicker for the Ravens should be valuable because the offense should score less touchdowns this season because, again, there's going to be some potential regression from Lamar Jackson throwing 41 touchdowns last year. So with the regression implied and impacting the offense, it should lead to more field goals. And, of course, Loop, I mean, Harbaugh is a special teams coach, right? So he knows where to find kickers. They'll be fine. Adam says 2-year max keeper. So if I keep Christian McCaffrey, Neighbors without my first pick, have 2 5th-round picks, should I start a RB wide receiver or quarterback in a half PPR 10-team keeper league with my 5th pick? All right, 1 second. I'm about to be on the board. I'm about to be on the clock, excuse me. What am I looking for? I'm looking for probably a little bit of wide receiver depth here. Just a little bit, nothing crazy. What is available? I have potentially this player and this player and this player. Okay, we're in a good spot. In terms of quarterback play, the fact that Baker Mayfield's still available is not terrible. I could probably take Knicks in the 8th and be pretty happy about it, getting the positional advantage there. As of right now, I'll take Stephon Diggs with this the 7.10. Okay, so in regards to your question, Adam, 2-year max keeper league. If I keep McCaffrey or Neighbors without my first pick, I have 2 5ths. How should I start my draft? Let's say, for example, you start McCaffrey, or you keep McCaffrey. If you're playing in a keeper league with the 5th overall selection, you're hoping that Neighbors falls to you. If the likelihood isn't that he falls to you, then it's probably going to be someone like Nico Collins falling to you, to which, again, you're going to start wide receiver. The way that I see it, if you keep a running back, you should probably start wide receiver. Unless a lot of the teams in your league are keeping wide receiver, in which there are running back values available that shouldn't be available there. In that case, you'd pick them. Okay, let's see here. Where are we at? I'll take Baker here. Like, at this point, considering the availability of these other options, like, at this point, I'm okay with Baker in the 8th. That's not a problem for me. Looks like Genty has a shoulder injury. What, did he just sustain it in the preseason? That would be incredibly unfortunate. Genty walking around now. He took a big hit, didn't have to. Yeah, this is what happens when teams play their starters in the preseason. You leave yourself up to getting potentially, bad situations. And that's why we don't draft early, ladies and gentlemen. We just wait. We wait and we wait. All right, where are we at here? Says... Okay, this is Rock Gosu who says, all the new ones that are getting hyped, Genty, Henderson, Hampton, McMillan, Golden, Egbuka, who do you like, and are some of them overrated? I don't think any of them are overrated. Legitimately, I think all of them are going to play well this season. This was a really good NFL draft in terms of talent across the board. And especially in terms of early round draft capital utilized on these players, it's not by accident. Hampton was a first round pick because he's a stud. So is Genty. So is McMillan. So is Matthew Golden. I think Egbuka going in the first round is not a surprise considering, again, Godwin is dealing with his injury. And Travion Henderson going in the second to a team that is in desperate need of a running back. It all makes sense. So, yes, we're going to get a discount on Genty going forward. But as of right now, I like all the rookies. Like, legitimately, especially considering where they were drafted. I posted a video a couple weeks ago that has Tetaroa and McMillan as the thumbnail. It's specifically, I go over data from the last decade of fantasy football in regards to early selected wide receivers in their NFL draft, either being first round picks or being second round picks or being drafted in the first 5 rounds, and their success rates. Additionally, wide receivers selected in the first 10 picks of their NFL draft and their success rates. And everything is telling us that there is an incredibly high likelihood that McMillan, Genty, Hampton, Golden, Ekbuka, and Henderson are all going to find success this upcoming season for sure. Again, barring that there's no injury implications there. Remember, Baltimore had like 28-game winning streak a year or two before, and Dobbins got hurt. 28-game winning streak? You mean 28-game winning streak in the preseason? Is that what you're talking about? Because I don't remember a 28-game winning streak in general, no. Would you keep Josh Allen or Derrick Henry in a keeper redraft? Again, if this is a league in which you can keep them year over year outside of the board, then you're just keeping Josh Allen. If you're not keeping them year over year off the board, and this is like Derrick Henry becomes your first round keeper and Josh Allen becomes your second round keeper, at that point, I'll just keep Derrick Henry and just keep it rolling. And if you can't keep them year over year, just keep Derrick Henry because he gives you the best shot of winning this season. All right, so considering quarterback has been taken across the board here, tight ends have been attacked on the back end of this board. Everyone here, everyone next to me is going to be going wide receiver or tight end or running back. And as it's such, Keon Coleman gets taken off the board. I would have loved an opportunity at Keon Coleman, but not being able to get him isn't too big of a risk for me. Of the available players, I mean, I'm going wide receiver depth because I definitely need to build upon that in comparison to where I have put myself in this situation. So at this point, I don't mind the addition of a Jaden Reed here, just to potentially tap in on some value within that offense. Mixon and Chubb stack is incredibly valuable. Assuming Jamar is gone at 1.01, I have the 1.02 in a full PPR 12-man redraft. I wanted to take an early wide receiver. Would it be crazy to reach on CD at number 2? In a full PPR, I don't think it's crazy. I think it's just, if you're settled on selecting wide receiver at 1.02, it's fine. I don't have an issue with it. We have seen that no matter who plays quarterback for the Cowboys, Lamb's going to be good. So if you don't want to take Bijan, it's not a problem. Go with Lamb. It's fine. Would you take CeeDee Lamb over Jefferson in the first? I don't have an issue with that. I have them in the same tier of wide receiver, so it's perfectly fine to take one over the other. Adam says, I mentioned I don't have the first pick. I won't be able to pick neighbors. My first pick will be anyone. Oh, that's right. Okay, look, when you said you had the 5th pick, I thought, yeah, you're right. Okay, so in that case, again, if you are keeping one of the two, I'm most likely going to keep CMC, and then I'm addressing wide receiver immediately in that round 2 and 3, unless running back value that shouldn't be there falls to you. Am I on the clock? I am on the clock, and I got Kincaid. All right. Well, there goes Andrew completely botching that situation. Okay, really quickly before we continue. Again, earlier today, yesterday, we talked about this entry in regards to Betr making a play in regards to their overall kind of system. Again, for those of you who are trying to get my rankings this upcoming season, all you guys got to do is sign up using code Andrew, make that first time deposit minimum of $10, and then of course make a $1 entry minimum, $1 play minimum within any of these overall sports verticals. So whether it's the UFC or whether it's potentially the NFL in terms of the future, they've added a lot of these in the last coming days. A lot of these have just been added in the last coming hours. So as this continues to develop outward, I'll be able to study this and get an idea as to which way I want to go. Like, I'm actually curious what the receiving yards of Metcalf looks like this season. I know a lot of people are down on him, but I mean, if Metcalf isn't surpassing 1,000 receiving yards this season, I'm going to lose my absolute marbles. I think it's like an impossibility unless he's finding himself missing time because of injury. So again, those are kind of values that I definitely want to tap in on early on while these numbers are only just coming out. What's another? Let's see, rushing yards. Who's a player that potentially is a little bit lower than they need to be or should be? I mean, a lot of these are very much so like injury contingent. If they stay healthy, they'll be fine. That's basically the name of the game. That is the name of the game. But yeah, anyway, if you make a $1 entry, then you'll go ahead and get those rankings sent from my email directly to yours. Again, all that information is down in the description for those of you who are interested. Again, we've been here for about an hour and 50 minutes. We'll go ahead and close out the last 10 minutes of the live stream, just going ahead and talking about a couple of the questions you guys have, and then we'll close it out today. And I'll be back tomorrow with probably just a regular upload. And then additionally, we'll be back to uploads every day. Hopefully start streaming more often as we get closer to the season here. All right, so what do we have here? Showtime718 says, yeah, I think he just got rocked. He'll be up. Yeah, he'll be fine. There's no problem with it. Does J-Jet's hamstring injury play a role with picking CD over JJ? I mean, for many of you, it may, but for me, I don't really have an issue with it, so I would pick JJ there. Thoughts on a 1.07 team? Let me see what you had. At the 1.07, going Chase and McCaffrey solid. McBride in the third round is great. More Ridley solid. Golden solid. Downs is okay. Montgomery. I have no issue with the team. It's just you're 100% contingent on Moore and additionally Ridley carrying the workload. They have to. They absolutely have to. Let's see here. B-Dog says they should not use Genty until week 1. I agree. Aaron says, am I crazy for wanting to draft Nico at 11 and Chase Brown at round 2, then grab the 3-4 turn of Kittle and Henderson? I don't think it's crazy. I think there's just a lot of intentional risk there, which could pan out. So could be solid. Just have to wait and see. Where are we at? Hey, Andrew, if you had an option to take Bowers at the end of the second and Allen beginning of the third in a half PPR 12-team 12-man league, 7-person start, would you do it? 7-person start. Hold up. Let me open up a notepad here for the sake of my mind. 7-person start would be QB, RB, wide receiver, tight end, flex, and then maybe another flex. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. No, that's okay. So if you have a 2 running back, 2 wide receiver, 1 flex, 7 start league, in that situation, am I going Josh Allen in the third? Probably wouldn't mind it. So actually, no, it's Josh Allen in the second, right? Where's the question? Where art thou? You go Bowers in the second, you go Josh Allen in the third. I don't love it. I will tell you that. Usually the way that I've approached this season is I don't try to take positional advantages at both quarterback and tight end. I pick one or the other. I don't blend. So considering that being the case, I'm more inclined to lean in the direction of just picking one or the other and not getting both. So if I was you, at the 1.01, if you take Bijan and then you take Bowers, in the third round, I want a wide receiver. I want to try to grab one of those wide receivers that have fallen down the board, select them, and then come back and draft a potential quarterback in the fourth. But yeah, as of right now, that's the way that I'd go about it. If you didn't want to take Bowers in the second, I would say you probably should consider it because it's great value there at the back end of the second, and ignore quarterback. But if you were going to do so, again, it just leaves you very much so vulnerable to where the rest of your draft has to hit consistently, which again, nothing's guaranteed, especially with quarterback and tight end, but we're assuming that, Bowers and Josh Allen will be pretty safe picks to say the least. So I don't mind it. Just got to make sure that you're comfortable with a little bit lack of depth at the alternative positions in a 12-team format. Favorite team in the mock so far? I actually really do like the structure at which there's some interesting teams here, to say the least. I don't mind the way that Team 8 has gone and Team 9 has gone. I think they've got the right formula there. Peter, what's up, my man? Peter sends in a question. Thank you very much. Very kind of you, brother. Machbears. Let's see here. Trade suggestion. We have Goff, Kyler, CJ, okay? Bijan, Achane, Brown, Hall, Walker, Dobbins, Roshan, Chase, Neighbors, Drake, Ladd, Jason, Addison, Williams, Golden, Garrett Wilson, Pearsall, Judy, Kincaid, Loveland, and Gray. Any trade suggestions? Well, my question first and foremost is, what kind of a league is this? Is this like a regular PPR? Is this a dynasty? Is this a keeper? Because you have so much talent, it's kind of ridiculous. My only primary suggestion in this situation, considering you have Bijan, Achane, and Brown, none of those three have to move. You just have ultra. Here's the thing. You have so much value that if I was in your position, I'm looking to move like either Lad or JSN if you don't have multiple starting flex spots. Because like assuming you're starting Neighbors, Chase, and Drake every game rest of season, I'm taking Lad or JSN and I'm going to look for a tight end that's better than Loveland, Kincaid, or Gray. And that's the way that I'd go about it. That's what I'm looking for immediately, Peter. I want to improve quarterback and I want to improve tight end. Let's say you take Loveland and you add him onto a JSN and you send it over and see if you can go get a Kittle or a McBride. Or you theoretically take, Goff and JSN and try to go get a better quarterback in the form of a Joe Burrow, Try to see if something of that nature could be developed upon. Alrighty, let's see here. Cleanup. ILU says 2 quarterbacks, 7 point per passing touchdown, half PPR, 3 keeper, no rounds for keepers. I kept Bo Nix, Chase Brown, and Lad McConkey. I have Baker, Kyler, Puka, Achane available in my draft. 12 QBs, above Penix available. Don't wait on second QB. No, do not wait. Select them immediately. Immediately. Absolutely should be your first selection, should be quarterback, especially considering Baker's available. That should be your first selection. If Baker's to go before your selection, at that point, I'm leaning towards Achane and then hoping you can come back and get Trevor Lawrence later. Casey Hammock says, I had the 1.01 in a 12-man league. Went Bijan, McBride, Allen. Then went with James Conner and Ridley in my 4-5 turn. Trading Conner for Chase Brown currently, though. Fantastic. If you can get away with trading Conner for Chase Brown, congratulations. You are absolutely swindling whichever team you're playing against there. David, what's up, man? Says, grade my draft in the 6th spot. Cool. So in the number 6 spot, going CeeDee Lamb is pretty solid value there. Getting Bucky Irving, James Conner, and Chuba Hubbard are pretty great. Ultimately, I don't see there's a I think you're great. I think those are all incredible values. Boom, boom, boom. McMillan in the 5th, Hunter in the 6th. Maybe Hunter's a little bit overdrafted, but maybe I'm a little bit down on his potential value. He could very easily outproduce where I have him currently ranked, which based on my current rankings, let's say, for example, in a full PPR, I have Travis Hunter ranked as my number 35 wide receiver, so he could very easily outproduce that positioning for where I have him. Mahomes in the 7th. I don't really love Mahomes there. Personally, I prefer Nix and Mayfield over him. So you could have theoretically either gone with one of those two directions. I also do prefer someone like Njoku over Hawkinson, but actually, no, I don't. That's a lie. In a full PPR, I do prefer Hawkinson, so you're fine there. I would rather have Keon Coleman than Cooper Kupp. It's just really just a matter of, as you go along in the draft, the structuring of your roster is correct, in which you are making your selections, like addressing wide receiver and running back until you get to your quarterback and tight end. That is the correct approach. As to the players you selected, we may have differences, but that's irrelevant because we're all going to have different opinions as to who we think is going to perform this season. We all have our different kind of players that we want to hold in high regard into one another and all that kind of jazz. So it's going to differ in that regard. So I'm not really going to pick too much on the players that are selected. I'm more going to pick on the structure which you built your team, and I like the way that you've structured it. Peter says, any trade suggestions to make this team sharper? Nobody wants to trade with me. Let me know. I'm not surprised that they don't want to trade with you, Peter. I'm going to be totally honest. You have such a stacked team that everyone's probably afraid of your roster. So ultimately, you could just play. If nobody wants to give you a quarterback, and when I say a quarterback, I mean legitimately, I'm looking to try to get a top 8 quarterback. So I would like to trade for Allen, Jackson, Hurts, Daniels, Burrow, Mayfield, Nix, Mahomes, Purdy. If you can't get any of those, which really, I don't even think you need to, unless you get one of the top 5, Burrow, Daniel, Hurts, Jackson, Allen, unless you're going for one of those, don't make a trade. Because Kyler is a very solid top 10 quarterback. Goff has been top 10 each of the last 3 seasons. So you have two theoretical top 10s already. You don't need to overpay unless you're getting a top tier guy. And then outside of that, again, I would like to try to get a Kittle, Laporta, if theoretically possible, McBride, if somebody in your league has them and is in desperate need of running back and or wide receiver. So I would send a Kincaid along with a Walker and go get a McBride, you know? Daniel sends in a question, says, rank these wide receivers in order. Jacoby, Cup, Golden, Diggs. Cool. Let me go ahead. If you can do me a favor, Daniel, let me know what your scoring format is, and I'll look over at my rankings and let you guys know. Again, besides getting the rankings via Betr, by using code Andrew today, of course, making that first-time deposit minimum of $10 and making that first-time play within the sports vertical, minimum of $1 in regards to that play. You can always find my rankings also via Patreon. There's a link down in the description for those of you who are theoretically not eligible to play on the Betr app because of your location. Again, if you are ineligible based on your current state not allowing it, again, and you're not able to take advantage of it, you can look at the Patreon. There's availability there for those of you who are interested in those kind of services. Thank you very much. And again, if you play up to 10 today on Betr, you get up to 30 instantly, which again is a great offer. Let's see here. So as of right now, let me know, Daniel, what your scoring format is. Until then, I'm going to answer a couple more questions, then we're going to shut it out today. Do appreciate y'all coming through, supporting the channel. Third pick out of 10, full PPR, who you taking? Under the assumption that Bijan and Chase are both selected, I legitimately am going with Christian McCaffrey. If you don't like that selection, then you go with one of the two wide receivers, which is which is Jefferson or Lamb. Fraz says, did the Saints' weak offensive expectations affect your outlook on Kamara's opportunity and efficiency? Wouldn't Kenneth Walker or Connor be safer bets? Connor with highest ceiling. Well, okay, let's look at the Saints' offense each of the last 2 seasons. They have not been effective or efficient, yet the volume has been there for Kamara. In fantasy football or in the NFL, we often look towards running backs in terms of what are their yard per carry averages? What is their yard per reception averages? How many yards after contact per attempt can they produce? How many yards per attempt are they able to create? When we look at all those metrics, again, it gives us a narrative. But in regards to Kamara, who's been given 22 to 24 touches per game in each of the last 2 seasons, the volume of opportunity, whether he's efficient or not, is irrelevant because the opportunity share is going to be there. And considering the offensive expectations for the Saints is going to be that they're not going to be able to compete with many of teams, it is going to lead to a lot of negative game scripts. That is going to lead to even more receiving workload for Kamara, which in his own right is his most valuable asset. There's a reason why Kamara has never rushed for over 1,000 yards in his career. It's because that's not what he is meant to do. He is meant to make plays out of the backfield in the receiving game and find fantasy success in that regard. So no, I don't believe that Kenneth Walker nor Connor are safer bets unless we're talking about a standard scoring format in which you get no points per reception. Let's see here. We were looking for Daniel. He said half PPR. Okay, let me look at my half PPR rankings and let's check it out really quickly. In regards to the players you just mentioned, I have them ranked as such. In a half PPR, I would take Jacoby Myers, then Golden, then Diggs, then Cup in that exact order. Thank you. Peter says Brock Bowers, question mark. Let me see, Peter, where are you at? Peter said any trade suggestion. Yeah, if you can go after Brock Bowers, absolutely go for him. I just think it's going to be more difficult to get him. But if you can, shoot, let's go for it. Absolutely. My receiver 2 is DJ Moore. That's fine. I don't have an issue with that. Again, I think DJ Moore is going to be a top 20 wide receiver anyway. I can draft Bijan and London first 2 rounds. Yeah, you can. I don't have an issue with that. Again, if you are afraid of stacking 2 players on the same offense, that's perfectly fine. You can go elsewhere. I personally don't have an issue stacking Bijan and London. I don't have an issue stacking Saquon and AJ Brown. I don't have an issue stacking Jamar Chase and Chase Brown. If you're part of an elite offense, I don't have an issue stacking Bijan. Sorry, I don't have an issue stacking Gibbs and Amon-Ra. Like, that's not a problem for me. Pick one, Ricky or Diggs. I'd rather have Ricky, and it's not even close. I think I'd rather have him a whole round ahead. Is drafting 4th a bad spot in its 10-team standard league with 6 point per passing touchdown? No, it's not a bad spot. At the 4th pick, I'm taking a running back. In the 2nd round, I'm picking a quarterback. That's the way that I go about it. 3rd round, I'm probably going, best available. Either wide receiver or running back, depending on what's kind of in that situation. All right, y'all. I do appreciate y'all coming through. Again, the last 2 days of live streams have been incredibly fun. Of course, we're going to continue to do live streams as we get closer to the season. Probably starting on August 24th, maybe 25th. I'll be live streaming every day up until the beginning of the season, which again is going to be the Thursday night football game on September 4th between the Eagles and of course the Cowboys. And then of course on Friday of that week as well, September 5th, we have the Chiefs taking on the Chargers. We'll be live streaming on that day, Saturday, and then of course Sunday morning live streams as we typically do. So yeah, I think we're going to be in a good spot. I do appreciate y'all. For those of you who went ahead and used code Andrew via Betr, made all those kind of moves, hopefully you've taken care of all that business. I'll go ahead and check the email right now so that I can send those updated rankings in your direction. If you guys sign up via Patreon, fantastic. If you guys are just here for the good vibes and all that kind of jazz and try to absorb as much information as possible, do appreciate your guys' attendance today. That's going to cover it. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cue the one and only Double Helix. And until next time, have a great weekend, and I'll see you guys. Peace.